Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever we are. We know that this portal will be open and accessed by so many of us from all walks of life and all over the world. So into this portal of our Torah reading Monday, today being it would be a Torah reading day in synagogue, we go into the portal of Chayei Sarah. So Sarah's lifetime, is it the lives of Sarah? So many lives she lived, to 125 years. It is about her life, but really when you look at the Torah reading 20 verses or so in, we know that this is really about what happens after she's gone. And we have an Abraham who has to contain his own loss, and he has to negotiate for a place for her burial. And he says, Ger betoshab anochi imachem. With you, the Hittites, I am a stranger and a resident among you, both a stranger and a resident, one who is living amongst you. And now the tachlis is, let me acquire a burial site among you so that I may move my beloved, the dead of my family, for burial. So how many of us have had to do the most difficult and the most sublime in the last many, many months? And I've always wondered about our essential workers. Being the daughter of a physician who served for so many years in a barrio, right, in a neighborhood in Washington, D.C. So my mother served in a neighborhood that became the center for refugees from Central America in the 70s. And I used to wonder why she kept a paperweight in the shape of a diamond. Here it is. This paperweight in the shape of a diamond. And of course, she adorned her clinic with all sorts of artifacts from Asia. But this diamond sat there, and I just thought that it was such a symbol. Yeah, okay, it's glass. It's not real, but it's a symbol of wealth. There she is facing sickness, wellness, life, death. And here was this diamond suggestive of wealth, physical wealth, an anomaly, I thought. But then I remember looking at it, especially during this time, during this pandemic. There were so many facets to it. It caught light from so many angles. So it was this anomaly of life and death, wellness and sickness, of giving and holding back, of fear and courage, of generosity and selflessness, of openness and boundaries, manyness and multitudes. They don't seem to cancel each other, but support each other in full range of power and response to life. So as I look at this Torah reading, I see this death bringing life. And so many times we invoke this poetry of opposites and many divrei Torah. But how do you translate this to real life when we seek simplicity, homogeneity sometimes? We fear the strange, we fear the stranger, but aren't we strangers to each other in essence? 36 times we encounter the stranger in our Torah. And we also encounter the call to love God with all your heart and all your soul and all your being, and to love your fellow human being. And the words that are somehow soft focused afterwards in the book of Leviticus, Ani Hashem. So strangers we are to each other, yet in breath, and this longing brings us together. I'd like to invite my friend Adi to share a psalm. My first slide. Thank you. From the stranger to the resident among you, we move to even coming closer through the longing of the heart. In the second slide from the Psalms. So my own meditation practice is always framed by a kirtan, or a chanting before and then a chanting after. Sam'at nafshi le'Elohim le'el chai. Sam'at nafshi le'Elohim le'el chai. Mata yavo ve'era'eh Penei Elohim, Mata yavo ve'era'eh Penei Elohim. Sam'at nafshi le'Elohim le'el chai. Matai havo ve'era'eh Penei Elohim. Matai havo ve'era'eh Penei Elohim. Matai havo ve'era'eh Penei Elohim. Matayavo ve'era'eh Penei Elohim. Yadarai, 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 When will I come to appear before the One? When will I come to appear before you, before the One? My soul is thirsty for the One. My soul is thirsty for the One. Ya 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 dai, ya da da dai, lai ya dai dai dai. thirst for you, the one. As these words fade, let the longing, the thirst for the divine vibrate in your lips. May it vibrate in your heart. May it keep you tremulous and always surprised and ready to be in awe. So wherever you are, feel your sits bones resting on the earth that lifts you. If you're sitting with your legs folded under you, find these two triangles from your knees to your hips to your sacral bone, two triangles that intersect in the oneness of your spine. Move your pelvis forward slightly instead of tucking it, receding. Move it forward again slightly and tuck it the way you usually would tuck and recede. And move it forward as if you're about to get up. The chest is open. The shoulders widen. If you close your eyes, you look within or you look below. I would join my hands together so that the digits are nicely resting on each other, my thumbs oftentimes touching one against the other. We close our eyes, take a breathe, we breathe in. Samat nafshi, I thirst for you. And I breathe out, Lelohim. Breathe in, Samat nafshi, I thirst for you, my soul thirsts for you. And I breathe out into you. from the thirst of longing, I offer this prayer and our sit today for the healing of Barbara, daughter of Evelyn, mother of my colleague, Rabbi Josh Weissman, and for my colleague, Rebecca Scharf, whose Torah reading is Parashat Chayei Sarah. Adi, could you please share our last slide? משכני אחריך נרוצה. Draw me after you and let us run. מישרים אהבוך, אהבת עזה, אהבת מישור, אהבת בלי עקיבא. Draw me after you, let us run into the world, loving you sincerely, with a strong love, a love upright, without deceit or intrigue. Achabat Azza, Achabat Bishor, Achabat Bili Akiba.
So beautiful, Mira. Thank you so much. Friends, we seal our practice as we always do by offering an opportunity for those in mourning, observing yahrzeit, if it's your custom to participate in Kaddish. If you're welcome to share the name or names of those you're honoring in the chat box. For the rest of our community here, it's up to us to remain present as supportive witnesses for those who are reciting Kaddish, who I invite to join me in rising in body or in spirit. Recite the words. Yitgadal, Yitkadosh, Shemei Rabbi. Yalma, Tibra, Yitake, Yalich Malchutay. B'chayekol, B'mechukot, B'chayekol, B'Yisrael. Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Olam Amen. Barach Ishtabach Yitbarach Yitbarach
Dar
Yitalev
Shabri Elamin Kol Bechirata Hey Shlama Rabba Ben Shemaya Eino V'Kol Israel
Amen.
Friends, thank you so much for joining us today. Wonderful group and a beautiful teaching by Rabbi Mira Rivera. For those who are leaving us in the chat box, I'm putting our lineup for the rest of this week. Our teachers tomorrow will be led by Cantor Heather Batchelor, and on Wednesday by Reb Brian Yosef Schachter Brooks. On Thursday by Yael Shai, and on Friday, Rabbi Shepa Gold will lead us into Shabbat. So we hope you'll join us for any or all of those days. For those who are able, you're welcome to stay on for a conversation with Rabbi Rivera about today's beautiful teaching and practice, share reflections just to extend it and bring it into your day. As ever, thanks to Adi Stein for holding our tech Mishkan, our sanctuary here, with grace and skill. And if you do have a question you'd like to share, please put it in the chat box. And actually, we are still, despite our best efforts, unfortunately, having challenges with the chat. So if you have a question or a comment or anything you want to share, we have to play relay here and send it to Adi, who is in the participant list as Institute.
Wait, the
for
chat
Jewish
is working
Spiritual.
today. Yeah, it is no small miracle.
It's,
The
and
chat is working
it's not
today.
even Hanukkah yet. Incredible. Okay, wonderful, wonderful, excellent. Who, the mysteries of Zoom. So thank you. So put your question or comment or reflection directly in the chat box. If it's a question, try to keep an eye on it. Mira, thank you so much. First of all, I just wanted to ask you the melodies for both of those. Whose melodies are those? Do you know? Do you know? Or no?
Pulled it out of the sky this morning.
You did? Really?
Yeah.
Wow. All I can say is wow. That was really beautiful. Both of them, so beautiful. Really, that especially that first one while we're sitting, it really, really stayed with me. Beautiful. That's very special. Thank you for that. So here's the question I have, question slash observation. And I would love to bring back your mother's diamond paperweight back into this at some point, because I thought that was just an amazing story, an amazing artifact to reflect on. Maybe it will relate to the question. So, it seems to me that there's this paradox that you lifted up, right? The paradox of it's a Torah portion that's all about death, and yet its name is Chaye Sarah, the lives of Sarah, like you said. And in this negotiation with the native peoples, that Abraham says these words, which are really very important words in Torah. Ger v'toshav anochi imachem. I am a ger and I am a stranger and a resident alien with you in this land. And then, since it is a Shemitah year, I want to lift up that God says those words to the people in Leviticus, in speaking about the Jubilee or the Yovel, when there's the instruction that in the 50th year, in the Jubilee, in the 7th cycle of Shemitah years, that everybody should go back to their original piece of property, because you can't sell the land. And God says, you can't sell the land because it's mine, and you are Gerim v'toshavim imadi. You are, and same words that Abraham says. And that it's almost as if Abraham has this awareness at that moment. What? And so here's the paradox, and I wanted to invite you to comment on it. And I hope that this can play into what you were describing about your family of origin and that life experience, and what you have learned from that, which is the paradox of the word ger representing stranger, something like outsider, right? And yet it's also a word that represents living, being present, and so the paradox is of being here and yet of not of the place at the same time. And that there's some insight that arises from being able to hold both of those things at the same time, just as you were describing as living with the reality of death. And I know you do pastoral care, and you do a lot of work around this as a chaplain also, that there is the paradox of it's in dealing with death that you have this awareness of life and living that is quite intense. And here's the little cherry on the question, that the yearning that psalm that you sang about so beautifully kind of arises out of that dialectic, that paradox, the kind of energy that's generated by that. That's how I experienced it. Sitting that, I feel like I'm here and yet I'm not here. I'm alive and yet, frankly, I know I'm dying. I'm mortal. I'm not here forever. Somewhere in there is a question. That's my reflection. What do you think?
Okay, the paradox, really,
Mhm.
the longing, the arriving. So even being in Jewish community, right? I mean, when you even just look at one text, or even look at one word, you just find, I would find just such a well of inspiration. But then there's also having to come out of it, of study, of prayer, come out of it and deal with, the people around me and what I have to do, right? So, while there was longing for Abraham, he still had to do the tachlis of burial.
Mm-hmm.
And even, I was looking at Rashi, my friend Rashi, who, on a really on a contextual plain level, yes, I am a stranger who's come to live amongst you. But Rashi would say on midrashic level, it is up to you. If you treat me well, well, then I will live with you as I'm a stranger with like no rights to the land. Almost like the free spirit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like so many of us who dive into spirituality or who just like want to find that other, like to get that juice from from texts that should not be desiccated, but sometimes they kind of dry up. So we want to be free spirits, but we also have to deal with the world. So, even Rashi says, if I will not consider myself a citizen, right, then, that I can take this property by purchasing it lawfully, then where will I be?
Mm.
I would like to be here. Yes, free spirit, but we live in this world.
Yeah, I love paradox, and I always feel as though, when we hit upon a paradox, the spiritual Geiger counter goes off and says, "Oh, this is where it's happening." So, can you say a little bit more about your parents, or about what you? I just was really appreciative of you mentioning both your parents and also, but especially that paperweight, the diamond, and maybe say a little bit about that again, or repeat what you were saying about that, what it means to you. Oh, you're muted.
So my mom had a practice for many years in Washington, D.C., a medical practice. She had come from the Philippines to continue. She was a doctor, a new doctor, medical doctor, and continued their studies at Johns Hopkins, and really loved being the nation's capital, near the nation's capital, and all that it represented. Right. So every time I go for a march, right, or anything, a protest in DC, I walk in those streets and I go, this was her city. Like this, she took on this place, and was not only didn't live in Virginia, didn't work in Virginia or all those, or the burbs, although she lived in the burbs, but like worked right in the middle of the city in a hospital. And then later on in a neighborhood called Adams Morgan, a little bit shishi these days, but still really it's very strongly left countercultural. And I visit her place every so often, and I see her, the people that she had treated, and I remember this. So I when she died, this was, I had some of her artifacts, and they're around, and it's harsh, and it's beautiful, and people always used to wonder, what is it? And she would engage people in just in aesthetics and art. And these were, she spoke Spanish, right? So she spoke the language of the neighborhood. And yeah, so she has marked me indelibly, even though I didn't grow up with her. I was raised in the Philippines by her mom, by my grandma.
It's so beautiful. It's especially beautiful. I guess what I was thinking, also looking at the diamond, and you were talking about the facets, it made me also think about the tradition of there being 70 faces of Torah, right? That there's something about her experience as you were describing it, and the beauty and the light emerging from that experience. That's, I find, extremely touching. I'm looking at there's a question, and just before we close, I want to make sure we get to the question here from Lori, who said, exquisite practice of being breathed by the divine and then breathing back into Elohim. Can you speak to this spiritual circularity in connection with white tantra practice? I'm not familiar with that. I don't know if you are, but with the divine. being breathed by the divine and breathing into Elohim.
So the word tantra is used very loosely in different places. And the initial meditation practice that I learned as a teenager also used that word.
Mhm.
And it's a liberation from. And yes, so it is this idea that we are not always completely outside of, we are in, and this is in many ways breathing back into
Mm.
what is.
Mhm.
As you know, the Yod Hey Bob Hey, the eternal in that, the present and the past and the future within that word. And so that's how I see. So I'm a little bit more careful about stepping into tantric tectonic plates these days. But I find what I've kept from that practice is that I do my meditation for devotion.
Mhm. That
Just
comes through. I mean, that comes through very much in those chants. And actually, on that score, I don't want to keep you too long, but I was wondering if you. I don't want to put you on the spot either. But if you were willing to reprise that that chant that led us into the meditation, it might be a beautiful way to transition into the rest of the day for us. Okay.
wonderful.
Thank you for that. So we want to invite everybody to, because the goal of our conversation for these 15 minutes is really to, from my perspective, is to hopefully let us infuse the rest of the day with the practice that we've engaged in and the teaching that we've been blessed with. And thank you, Mira, for giving us the words and the melody that can hopefully enliven the rest of our day.
And after this, you must have a glass of water. Samat nafshi leElohim leEl chai. Samat nafshi leElohim leEl chai. Matai avo ve'era'e pnei Elohim. Matai avo ve'era'e pnei Elohim. My soul thirsts for the eternal, the living eternal one. When will I come to appear before the one? Matai avo leve'era'e pnei Elohim. Matai avo ve'era'e pnei Elohim.
Thank you so much, Mira. Really so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that gift with us. Stay with us hopefully throughout the day and this week. Wishing everyone a Shavua Tov. Thanks, Adi. Thanks all of you for being here and sharing the journey with us, and hope to see you tomorrow as well. Many blessings, everyone. Thank you so much, Rabbi.